Here in Oregon, we're still in quarantine. I just realized even the trash goes out more than me. Did you know that people's number one fear is public speaking? Number two is death. Death! You know what that means? For the average person attending a funeral, they'd rather be in the casket than doing the eulogy. What God wants to do for us is replace that fear with faith. He knows His love can replace fear with boldness. Everywhere you go, you want to be God's representative. My wife likes to remind our son whenever he goes out, remember who you represent. Words of wisdom. One man who forgot to represent was Abraham's nephew Lot. Remember Sodom and Gomorrah? Twin cities burned to the ground. God would have spared them if even 10 godly people were found. In Genesis 19, 2 angels came to Lot and said, do you have any family here? If so, get them out of the city. This city's so sinful, God sent us to destroy it. God had a good man in town named Lot. He was a good guy, but he forgot to represent. So he didn't reach his family. He got comfortable in the culture. And Romans 12:2 warns us, don't become so well adjusted with your culture that you fit in without even thinking. When it came time to tell his 2 sons-in-laws that we got to get out of Dodge, God's going to destroy this place, they thought he was joking. Dad's getting all religious on us. He told his 2 daughters and wife, but on their way out, his wife started thinking about Bloomingdale's and Saks Fifth Avenue, and Neiman Marcus. And Genesis tells us that she looked back and became a pillar of salt. If he would have won his family, that would have been 6. If each one of them had won one person, that would have been 12, and Abraham would have found 10, and Sodom and Gomorrah would still be on the map. It's not on the map because the people of God were nowhere to be found. God's looking for people willing to represent Him wherever they are. And God calls us to be the salt of the earth. He saved us to be the people of God, to demonstrate to the world what God looks like when God comes into its midst. In other words, you're not a lawyer anymore. You're God's representative in the Bar Association, so the Bar Association gets to see what God looks like when God tries a case. You're not a doctor. You're God's representative in the medical field, so the medical field knows what God looks like when the medical field helps hurting people. Who told you you were a businessman? You're God's representative in business, so that business gets to see what God looks like when God cuts a deal. You're not a teacher. You're God's representative in education, so education gets to see what God looks like when students learn. You're the salt of the earth. That's your agenda. That's who God called you to be. And during this crazy time, it's easy to think only of ourselves. Call somebody. Text somebody. If you're not sick of it, do a Zoom call. You know what I believe? If you put your mind to it, you're going to crush it. In the words often used by my wife, remember who you represent. See you next week.